Welcome to our episode of the KZN Podcast, where we tell the story of optimism about a better future under the ANC government, under the ANC as a governing party in KwaZulu-Natal. Today we are joined by the former chair of the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal, the former premier. They say once an ambassador, always an ambassador. Welcome.
Yes, it's true. It's true. And once a chair, always a chair.
Yes, once a chair, always a chair.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much, His Excellency, for setting aside time to be with us. At some stage, you worked in an institution of higher learning as a librarian, as an archivist. 30 years down the line, we are celebrating, our 30 years of freedom and democracy. How does it feel?
The world of books is a very comfortable world because it links you with all human experience. So one started this love affair with books long ago when I grew up. But I ended up being a librarian. First started at University of Zululand, then became a librarian at the University of the North, 𝗵𝗂𝗄. Then 𝗵𝗂𝗄, then became a librarian at the university. It was called University of Botswana-Lesotho in Swaziland, UPLS. Then later on University of Botswana and Swaziland, then later on the University of Swaziland.
So you became addicted to books.
Then after that, chief librarian, University of Robben Island.
I think very few people are aware that you were the custodian of information, in that university.
That was the most critical position, to work at the kitchen or you work in the library. Then you really are the eye in the world.
Yeah. Very interesting. Ambassador, let's talk briefly. You led the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal during the most difficult period. How was it like to be a member of the Executive Council under the other political party, the IFP, to be exact?
Or perhaps let's start with the first one. Being chair, I was fortunate to have been, up to now, I was the longest serving chair of the ANC from 1998 to 2008. For 10 years. Before that, I was deputy chair. So these were most difficult times at that time when we were uniting the three regions, Southern Natal, Midlands and Northern Natal, to unite those to be one organizational structure. It had quite its own tensions with the very strong leaders at the time. You remember, Babu Kwala was still there, and but we managed to unite that, and then of course from 1998 to 2008 we started with a very fractious ANC, quite divided, and we united the province quite determinedly. At first it's either me or nothing, but we matured, and I remember particularly 2003, where we said it's not they say this about you, they say this about you, and so forth, between the two contesting comrades, myself and Comrade Solimkis.
Yes.
But where we said, what responsibility do we carry ourselves? Because they say this about you, but what are you yourself saying to your followers, vice versa. And we had a discussion that took us 13 hours exactly, one-on-one. We just started from about 9 right up to, Right. So, but it was 13 hours. That discussion was a no-holds-barred discussion. You say honestly what you feel about the other person, what you feel the other person is doing, and he tells you what he thinks you are doing, or what he's told you are doing, or what he observes you are doing. And we then come clean and say, okay, and then exactly what do we want for this province ourselves? We wanted a united ANC, wanted a united province, but it could not be united without the unity in the ANC itself. And had we not done what we did in 20, what is this thing now? Yes, 203, it's 202, 203. Yes. Because then we won in 2004. Had we not done that, we'd still have lost in 2004. So we came out of that, and we then said, let this thing move to the office bearers as a whole. And when we told them, when we related to them, they were so excited. I said, no, let's call the whole PEC, then let's go to the regions. And so then it became quite important. I remember one comrade in Newcastle. It was close to midnight when we were just telling them this is the position, comrades. If you were in so-called faction of Sbu Ndebele, the so-called faction of Zweli, forget it, it's gone now. I remember one comrade stood up and said, hey, I hear what you are saying, comrades. But I became a leader because I lead a faction. Now when you say the factions are finished, what am I going to lead? But it was a telling remark, and it was put in a light manner, but it was a telling remark because people cling to this thing because it gives them positions. And of course, for the rest of the movement, it was liberating. Good. I don't have to be this or that. I don't have to count why am I standing with this one and not this one. But from then, the creative and progressive forces of the ANC were then released. Of the workers, COSATU, everybody else, not now to contend with factions. And victory was there for us to take, which we did in 2004.
Quite interesting, very fascinating. One recalls the build-up to the 1999 elections. KwaZulu-Natal ravaged by political violence, no-go areas. But you were able to go into IFP stronghold, where you delivered services. And, people in those areas, they began to realize that the ANC was the only organization that had the capacity to deliver. Can you just tell us briefly about your, experience in terms of going to those no-go areas to deliver services?
One of the things that one, of course, had to come to realize the reality of the fact that KwaZulu-Natal was quite backward, structurally, in terms of development, in terms of roads, electricity, water. I'm so happy that people take that thing for granted now. But you drive from Freehead, then there will be that small flicker of light when you pass Nongoma, then a flicker of lights in Lundi. The whole place is dark, right through, and that's how it was. But look at it now, then so that was fundamental, that people are entitled to development. There is nobody who can disturb that. And people wanted roads. I myself, having grown up in a rural area of Makasaneni, those areas, Obuga, Mabenza, and so forth, where you're going to boarding school, you pray that it must not rain on the day you're supposed to go, because otherwise you take your school trunk the previous day and put it next to the bus stop, which will be some 7-8 kilometers away, so that when you wake up in the morning, you just go where the road was passable, and the trunk is at least in the house next door, and then you take it from there. So you know the frustration and the pain of not having access. So the first thing that we then said we are going to do is to build. I'm entrusted with the roads.
Yeah.
I remember, because we had received 32% of the vote, therefore we're entitled to only 3.
Yes.
And we could not really bargain, we have not won the elections.
Yes.
So roads and traffic, water affairs, those forestry, those portfolios normally were given to a person that you don't know what to do with this job. They just give him something.
Yeah.
And I remember when they said Sbu Ndebele, transport, road, traffic, and there was nothing. He ends up with only this thing. I said, these guys don't know the RTP.
Yeah.
So they've not read. They don't know that you as Roosevelt will put it, it is not the wealth of the country that builds roads. It is the roads that build the wealth of the country. Yeah. And we just turned it around, that this is a sine qua non of development. It's a condition for development. And we started building roads, and then you can't believe it, that we started with a budget of 8 million.
Unbelievable.
That was it. And we pushed it the following year to 28. 28 because I then discussed with the Premier there, Dr. 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀, said that I'm going to raise the license fees on condition that money is earmarked for rural roads. Yeah. And then we raised that, and it allowed us to move from 8 million to 28 million. Then following year, we 100 million. So we moved by lender, because people could see, even nationally, they could see this is money that is well spent, because you actually see the road. There was no road here, you see the road. And there were areas where I would say, if King Shaka, if King Dinizulu can wake up today, he won't get lost anywhere here, because the tree that was there is still there. The bridge that was not there is still not there. I remember that one. So we must change the place such that you can't find that Dr. 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Dube finds the place exactly as they left it. And we started transforming. And today, when I drive around KwaZulu-Natal, particularly now, since I came back from India, you really become so happy and say, there is a lot to be done. But by the way, that phrase must never blind us from appreciating the work that has been done, because there will always be work still to be done. Even in heaven, there's still work to be done. So let's not see Kenya Bezomo, there's still more to be done. We've done what has been done is phenomenal.
Fascinating. In the process of constructing roads across the province in all corners, you also created job opportunities, and you ensured that women who came from families that were living below the poverty line were employed. Tell us about that.
Yes, that was the Zimbabwe program. And so when we built the road, it would be nice to have these yellow trucks coming in, and they leave behind a completed road. It's nice, it's an achievement. But we then said, but we can even turn that thing around. Why don't we use the local people to build? To collect the material for building a road is not a difficult thing. It doesn't need science. Here is this person, he's got a wheelbarrow. Here is another one. The quarry is here.
Yeah.
That's it. Here is another one who's got a tractor.
Yeah.
And in his mind, he's got a tractor that he thought is only for plowing the fields.
Yeah.
But now we say, use the tractor now to bring the material for the road, for building the road.
Yeah.
And here is a contract, and it's the first time he's got a government contract. And people were excited. They saw so many possibilities now when the road is being built. And we built people who will say, hey, million.
Yes.
To see $1 million physically with justice by government, having a contract with government, and here is what I've done.
Yeah.
This road can stand inspection by anybody, and so forth. So we created those opportunities as well. Fascinating. And then, of course, the women, we then said, the maintenance of roads, don't over things that can be done in a simple way, simplify them. And therefore, to do potholes and do all those things, that must be done as part of the maintenance of the road, which investment, by the way, helps to prolong the life of the road. So the ordinary women around here should be done. And how do we select them? You let them select themselves. And it's amazing how poor people are able to be so generous with each other. Because they will say, we say poor people, they themselves agree, I'm poor, but this one is worse off. It's better for this one to come before me. And they will choose each other that way, which this one has lost the husband, has lost even his son, and so forth. It's just, let that be one. And then there is food on the table. People who did not know what poverty is. I remember one rich person, when I was still at university, was around here in Durban, who used to ask, when somebody says they are poor, how much don't they have? Because the concept of poverty, of having no money, did not exist in his head. Now, we knew that money, not having money, means no money,
and no food.
No food. And sometimes you find these people, when you do this door-to-door in this, and then you go to their houses and so forth, you find them boiling water. Now, you say, oh no, pay when and then when they open, it's water. Oh, why are you boiling water? Oh no, and when they get the meal, it's such a big difference. So those who don't know that what motivated the government, it was during President Mbeki's time, to meet stark poverty. And then you then say, let's have this 350 as a temporal measure to say how we must find a sustainable way to deal with poor people. But in the meantime, they can't say, we're still in the boardrooms, we're still discussing, let's do this thing. Of course, people haven't come with something better. We need to. But that helps and then puts food on the table from day to day.
No, that's incredible. This other interesting part of your tenure as the Premier, you also doubled as the MEC for Royal Household. You were in charge of the affairs of the Royal Household, and you managed to also, deal with the preservation of our culture, the heritage. Do you wanna just tell us, more about your activities that you championed during that period when you were the Premier of the province?
In my other life, really, I'm a historian, and so the history of the royal household, the kingdom, has fascinated me for a long time. And I started when I was as a young person. My father would ask me to read Ilanga for him, and that's how I got to be interested and understand certain things and so forth.
Yeah.
But the king, particularly the late, His Majesty, the late King 𝗤𝗖 was or first of all, was my age,
yeah,
or I was his age.
Yeah.
The three of us, the king was born in 1948. The speaker of the legislature, Comrade 𝗵cie 𝘀𝗁𝗆, was born in 1948.
Yeah.
And the premier, Sbu Ndebele, was born in 1948. So
Yeah.
the three of us were on Danga in
Yes.
the true sense, and we really quite respected each other
Yeah.
and liked each other. Yeah, that sort of was what the king raised. No, it didn't come on Danga.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And we started, of course, we related even when I was at University of Zululand, and the king would come there, and sasifunda naye lapha naye ukaMatha,
Yeah.
sasifunda naye university, and so he would come there. So you sort of was not the other person. He was a person that you knew, you could relate to. And when we came into government, of course, one of the first things that we did was to go and see him. I remember it was one evening, one afternoon, that around about 6, 8, let's go. We drove there, and we started meeting him around about 9 until about 5:30 in the morning. From 5:30, then he took us through 𝗂𝗚𝗄𝗄𝗏. Yeah, and the Ndlunkulu were really quite surprised. And
The whole night meeting.
The whole night meeting. And I remember Ndlunkulu, one Ndlunkulu used this word, 𝗤𝗖 Sbu Ndebele again. And how? Akambaka. Because she couldn't believe that there can be a Sbu Ndebele physically here, because they relate to me talking on radio and that sort of thing. Here we are. But we started a very warm relationship from then onwards. And then the issue at CODESA had been the status of the king. Now, that was then decided. What was decided at CODESA was that the province of KwaZulu-Natal will then deal with that. Because he's not a South African king. He's a king of this province. Then we then had to deal with that. And we checked in KwaZulu government, all the documents, all the laws. There is no law that actually recognized the king. There was none. There was none. So it was a new thing that we then had to do, to recognize what are his powers, what are his responsibilities, and all that, and all that. We had to define that, and we put it in a provincial constitution. But that was, of course, contested, and a lot of other things, to have a KwaZulu-Natal judiciary, to have these all powers that are not belonging to the province, and therefore that constitution did not pass. But having not passed, and it should have passed, because on the question of the king and the recognition of the monarch, the ANC and IFP are on one. They have got the same view and aspirations on that. It's a pity that they could not find each other on that issue. So when that didn't happen, when I became premier, the first act that we passed was the one that recognizes the king. So he stands there alone, because it doesn't have to be a constitutional thing. It can be just a legislative framework.
Linked to that, I think, let me just deliberately bring up this controversial issue, but it is not controversial because it was an intervention championed by the African National Congress. You assisted His Majesty with cars when he had nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a bit of resistance from the other political party that was in charge of the government of KwaZulu-Natal. What do you still remember that period? You know, when you arranged such interventions for His Majesty.
The king, one of the tasks of the responsibility of the king was to open the legislature. Now here was the king, Lundi, could not arrive because his car is broken down. I remember we referred to it as a jalopy. It had broken down. And now in the meantime, we as MECs had no shortage of cars.
Yeah.
And I was also, of course, MEC for transport. Then we provided that, but also there was intervention by President Madiba,
Yes.
President Mandela,
Yes.
who was able to speak to some of the big chaps, big manufacturers from Mercedes, and therefore a suitable car was then provided.
Yeah.
So I think from then on,
Yeah.
it has been maintained.
Yes.
So that we should have the king moving in a manner that is not embarrassing.
Yeah.
So he meets His Majesty the King in Swaziland, and he meets other kings, and people should not say, where does this one come from,
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
So the status and
Yes.
the transport that was befitting of a king,
Yeah.
we then provided.
Yeah. No, excellent. We are now, moving towards conclusion. The African Renaissance Festival, bringing in Africans from the diaspora. Fascinating stuff.
Yes, no, it's a project that now that one is back, one hopes to continue with it. The philosophy behind it was coming out of the circumstances of KwaZulu-Natal. And we needed to say we need reconciliation. Reconciliation has worked for South Africa, but reconciliation between black and white has worked. We have got a functioning government and a functioning democracy because everybody cooperates in that national project. But what about KwaZulu-Natal? There's been no reconciliation. Not starting from far. There was no reconciliation between African and African. That was what was the sore point for everyone. What is wrong with KwaZulu-Natal? When they say what is wrong with KwaZulu-Natal, they're not referring to whites. They're not referring to Indians. They're referring to Africans in KwaZulu-Natal. What's wrong with people? Why can't they live together? So the reconciliation between African and African is quite an important task for anyone who is in government here, to ensure that no one feels discriminated, everybody should feel affirmed. So that reconciliation, and that's what these peace talks, 3 aside, 5 aside, 10 aside, all those had been made had been directed at reconciliation between African and African.
Yeah.
There are many historical issues,
Yeah.
but we can't impose what happened in the past to the present generation to fight wars that they don't know what they are about. They need to go on with their life and create a new life of a vibrant, prosperous KwaZulu-Natal. So that's what it was. Then, of course, reconciliation between African and Indian.
Yes.
It's a key issue that does not relate to, in any big manner, to other provinces. Here you've got the biggest Indian population here. I should like to see even businesses where there is a Naidu Kumalo business, you know, that sort of thing. They should do business together, they should work together, they should be people who have lived together since 1860.
Yes.
There should be something much more natural affinity of working together. So that reconciliation should be palpable, should be something that you can point to and touch and take for granted.
Yeah.
It's still a surprising thing. Oh, this one, Indian and African, what is going on there and so forth. Yeah. That's not natural. We have lived together for so long. Yeah. So the reconciliation between African and Indian becomes important. Reconciliation between the African and white is important. I start with African, and it's a common denominator because this is an overwhelming majority, and that should be so. So the African Renaissance is meant at that. So, but it speaks first and foremost to the African unit.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sbu Ndebele. We have come to the end of our program, the KZN Podcast, where we tell the story of optimism about a better future under the African National Congress. We're going to request our ambassador to set aside time once again, maybe to come back, for another episode. But your last message, we are going to the elections, 29 May. What is your message to the people of KwaZulu-Natal?
To our people in KwaZulu-Natal, first of all, there should be no one in KwaZulu-Natal who knows how attempts to solve our problems through non-peaceful means has meant. It was a loss for everybody. But now that we've got an opportunity to vote, let's go out and vote in our numbers. Let's go out peacefully in our numbers to go and vote and choose the leaders that we want to choose. It's important for us to do so because if a government comes into being by default, by default is a government that came through because you didn't vote. You said it can't be. That's how society is created throughout the world. People vote every 4 years and every 5 years and have people of their choice, and we've moved beyond just voting in South Africa. We've said we wanted a government that foster participation. So it is not just that we voted, but once we have voted, we're going to say if we're in transport, we're going to build the road, but how we build the road, we build it with you, with your participation and all that. We're going to run schools with your participation, so that it's a democracy that is participatory. So to stand aside will not help. But also when you vote, vote wisely. It doesn't help not to vote or to spoil your vote or vote for something that is quite ephemeral. It doesn't help you at all. Vote for something that you know is tried, is tested. And there's nothing that helps you then experience. When you say that party, where does it come from? What has it done? What is the track record? So the tried and tested manner doesn't mean that the test has been perfect and so forth, but you know that this 𝗳𝗂𝗄𝗏𝗂𝗂𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗂 and so forth, when mistakes were made, what happened to those mistakes? Then they were corrected. So they didn't stand and say, no, once I've decreed this, that's what it is. So let's go out in our numbers peacefully and vote, and then by the 3rd of June, we should know that we are now installing a government that is going to work with new energy to take us forward.
Thank you very much, Sbu Ndebele.
Thank you. Sure.